In a landmark decision, the United States Supreme Court has overturned a series of controversial tariffs enacted during the Trump administration. This decision marks a pivotal moment in the history of U.S. trade policy, as it challenges the extent of executive power in shaping international economic relations. This ruling ends a years-long legal battle and redefines the limits of presidential power in international trade. It underscores the importance of checks and balances, ensuring that no single branch of government can unilaterally dictate trade policies that affect the global economy. The decision promises to reshape the economic landscape for the U.S. and its global partners, signaling a return to a more predictable, rules-based order. This shift is expected to foster greater stability and confidence among international investors and trading partners, who have long sought clarity and consistency in U.S. trade policies. At the heart of the case, can a president use emergency powers to impose sweeping tariffs without Congress? This question has sparked intense debate among legal scholars, economists, and policymakers, highlighting the delicate balance between national security and economic interests. The court's answer is a decisive no. This ruling reinforces the role of Congress in trade matters, emphasizing the need for collaborative decision-making and crafting policies that impact both domestic and international markets. This closes a chapter of economic protectionism and opens new opportunities and challenges for the global community. As tariffs are lifted, businesses may find new avenues for growth while also facing increased competition from abroad. The verdict will impact prices, small businesses, and international alliances, forcing a national conversation about the roles of government branches in a connected world. Consumers may see changes in the cost of goods, while small businesses must adapt to a shifting market landscape. As we unpack this historic ruling, we'll explore its journey through the courts and its real-world impact on businesses and global trade. This decision not only affects the present, but sets a precedent for future trade policies, shaping the economic future of the nation and its place in the global market. To understand today's ruling, we must revisit the tariffs' origins. Unlike traditional trade laws passed by Congress, these tariffs were imposed by the Trump administration using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA. The administration argued these tariffs were necessary to address national security threats, including illegal drug flows and foreign policy concerns. This broad use of IEEPA set a controversial precedent, expanding the definition of national security and bypassing Congress. Critics saw this as a misuse of a law meant for targeted sanctions, not sweeping trade policy. Supporters called it a flexible tool for modern threats. The core issue wasn't whether tariffs are legal, but who has the constitutional authority to impose them, and under what circumstances. This fundamental disagreement set the stage for the legal showdown that followed. The legal battle began in the U.S. Court of International Trade, a specialized federal court in New York City that handles cases involving international trade and customs laws. Here, the stage was set for a pivotal confrontation over the limits of presidential power. American importers and small businesses, feeling the weight of new tariffs, challenged the president's authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA. They argued that the administration's sweeping use of emergency powers to impose broad tariffs was not only unexpected, but also threatened their livelihoods and the stability of global commerce. The lower court sided with the plaintiffs, ruling that the administration's actions represented an overreach of executive authority. The judge's decision sent shockwaves through the business community and the federal government alike, raising questions about the balance of power between the branches. The government, determined to defend its policy, quickly appealed. The case moved to the federal circuit, where a panel of appellate judges reviewed the arguments and ultimately upheld the lower court's decision, reinforcing the limits on executive power. With two courts now ruling against the tariffs, the stakes grew even higher. Recognizing the profound constitutional and economic implications, the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case, signaling its importance for the nation's legal and economic future. Throughout this lengthy process, businesses remained in limbo. They faced mounting uncertainty, paying higher import costs, and struggling to plan for the future as the legal battle played out. Many worried about layoffs, supply chain disruptions, and the long-term impact on their operations. The journey through the courts showcased not only the resilience of the American judicial system, but also the determination of citizens and businesses to challenge federal actions they believed were unjust. It was a testament to the power of the rule of law and the right to seek redress. At every stage, intense debate unfolded over the separation of powers, the scope of executive authority, and the very nature of American governance. Legal teams pored over constitutional texts and precedents while judges weighed the far-reaching consequences of their decisions. Ultimately, the Supreme Court's involvement ensured that the case would receive a final, carefully considered judgment, one that would shape the boundaries of presidential power and the future of American trade policy for years to come. In a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court ruled that IEPA was never meant to serve as a tool for long-term trade policy. The majority opinion emphasized that while the president can act in true emergencies, that power is not limitless. Using IEPA for sweeping indefinite tariffs overstepped the law's intent and infringed on Congress's constitutional authority over commerce. The court drew a clear line. National security emergencies cannot justify rewriting economic laws without Congress. The dissent warned this could limit future presidents' flexibility, but the majority reaffirmed the need for checks and balances. The immediate effect, the challenged tariffs are unlawful and must be unwound, with agencies ceasing collection and companies potentially seeking refunds. The core legal question, who controls trade policy, has now been settled. For American businesses, especially small and medium-sized ones, this ruling is a major relief. The tariffs had acted as a direct tax, raising costs and forcing tough choices: absorb losses or raise prices. With the tariffs gone, companies will see immediate cost reductions, freeing up capital for growth and hiring. Consumers too will benefit as lower import costs gradually translate to lower prices on everyday goods. This could help ease inflationary pressures and restore market predictability. However, some domestic industries that benefited from the tariffs will now face renewed competition and must adapt. The ruling highlights the trade-off. While tariffs can protect some sectors, they often harm the broader economy and consumers. The Supreme Court sided with the principle that the overall economic harm outweighed the intended benefits. The Supreme Court's decision was closely watched by U.S. allies like Canada, Mexico, and the EU, who saw the tariffs as damaging to economic and diplomatic ties. Overturning the tariffs signals a return to a more collaborative, rules-based U.S. trade policy and helps rebuild trust with international partners. Allies view this as a victory for the global trading system and a chance to de-escalate trade disputes. The ruling opens the door for resolving other trade issues and encourages a less confrontational approach. While some countries have already shifted supply chains away from the U.S., this decision is a crucial first step toward restoring disrupted economic ties. Rebuilding trust will take time and sustained diplomatic effort. The world is watching to see if this legal shift leads to lasting policy change. Beyond economics, this ruling is a defining constitutional moment for the U.S. The case centered on the separation of powers, specifically Congress's authority over trade and taxation. By striking down the tariffs, the Supreme Court reasserted Congress's primacy in economic policy and checked decades of expanding executive power. The decision sends a clear message. The president cannot unilaterally rewrite economic laws under the guise of emergency powers. This may prompt Congress to reclaim a more active role in trade policy and reform laws like IEPA for clearer oversight. Ultimately, the ruling reaffirms the founders' vision of checks and balances, proving the system's resilience. The legal battle over these tariffs became a modern test of that framework, and the system held firm. To understand the decision's impact, we spoke with Dr. Evelyn Reed, a leading trade law expert. Dr. Reed explained the Supreme Court has set a guardrail on emergency powers, reaffirming that Congress, not the president, controls trade policy. This isn't about whether tariffs are good or bad, but about who gets to decide. The ruling forces future trade debates back into Congress, where they belong. Economist Mark Chen called the decision a shot of adrenaline for the economy, removing uncertainty and encouraging investment. While some industries will need to adjust, the overall effect will be lower prices and more efficient supply chains. Both experts agree. This case will shape U.S. trade policy for decades and reinforce the Constitution's authority. Today's decision is not just the end of a policy, but a powerful affirmation of American governance. This Supreme Court decision is about more than just tariffs or trade policy. It's a powerful statement about the enduring strength of American institutions and the foundational importance of the rule of law. When the highest court in the land speaks, it's not only interpreting statutes but also shaping the very framework that governs our society. This ruling reaffirms that government power must always be exercised within clear constitutional boundaries, ensuring that no individual or branch can act above the law. That principle impacts every American's daily life, from the way we do business to the rights we enjoy at home, at work, and in our communities. By clarifying the limits of executive authority, the ruling removes economic uncertainty and paves the way for greater stability, sustainable growth, and potentially lower prices for consumers. It reassures investors, business owners, and families alike that the rules won't suddenly change overnight. On the global stage, this decision sends a clear message. The United States is governed by laws, not by the unpredictable whims of any single leader. Our legal system is a model for others, and this ruling reinforces that commitment. By recommitting to a rules-based approach, the Supreme Court's decision helps rebuild trust with our allies and strengthens global stability. It signals that America can be relied upon to honor its agreements and uphold international norms. The key takeaway here is accountability. No one is above the law. The Supreme Court has held the executive branch to the Constitution, reminding us all of our shared responsibility to protect and defend our democratic system. It's a call to remain vigilant and engaged. This is a victory not just for businesses or legal scholars, but for the American system of government itself, a system built on checks, balances, and the enduring promise of justice for all. Our democracy endures because of vigilance, participation, and a collective commitment to the rule of law. Every citizen plays a part in upholding these values, ensuring that freedom and fairness remain at the heart of our nation.